What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Sean Noriega here at NORi Powerlifting, and today I'm going to do something a little different that I've never done on my channel, which is I'm going to be doing some voiceover during my training. So if you guys enjoy hearing this and like hearing my thoughts about my training and commentary about it, please let me know in the comments and I will do videos like this in the future. So as you guys can see, that was a very awkward 150 kilo squat, and right here I'm about to do a tremendously pathetic 430 pound triple. I'm finally getting back to doing squat and deadlift regularly, and let me tell you, it feels awkward. The movements feel very weak, and unfortunately, even though my posterior rib injury is gone, I've been dealing with a little bit of groin pain similar to what I was experiencing last year around this time. Now, I have some actually very exciting news that I haven't really alluded to much publicly, which is that I will be working with a coach going forward. I'll be working with Steve DeNovi at PR's Performance. For those of you who do not know Steve, he has a YouTube channel. His Instagram account is PR's Performance, and he is probably, in my opinion, the most underrated coach in powerlifting right now. Now, you guys may be wondering, why am I working with a coach when I have expressed comfort and confidence in working with myself and have even explained how I've collaborated with programming in years prior, even when working with Joey Flex. And the honest reason is that my ability to program myself is definitely being hindered by the amount of time I am dedicating toward my business and my clients right now. I find very frequently I'm putting my own training on the back burner when it comes to programming, where it'll end up being an after the fact, last program of the night type deal. And as somebody who wants to be the best in the world in his weight class, I cannot have my programming not be a priority. And Steve and I have spoken a ton about training in the past. We both agree on numerous training principles, and he ultimately has done his due diligence in seeing and keeping up with what I've been doing training-wise over the past few years, and I fully subscribe to and trust everything that he wants to do with my training. And I think that for many people, that is 99% of the battle when it comes to working with a coach. I think that if you've watched my How to Pick a Coach, you should have a good idea, and that should be a litmus test for what qualified coaches get through the door and which ones don't. But after that point, it's all about buy-in. You know, I've always been very skeptical of handing the reins over to somebody, as I'm very particular and very confident in my own methods. However, I really agree with and trust Steve to a level that I don't think I can say I have trusted another coach with my own training. And I think that that's going to lend itself very positively in the future to my successes, especially with getting over this mental hump that I've experienced with squatting. Now, as you guys can see here, I'm doing some pretty effortless benching, and that's how I've felt about bench press and deadlift in the past few years. But squat, on the other hand, has been a bit of a mystery lift for me, as well as something that has just been the subject of setbacks and injuries over the past 2 years. It's become increasingly frustrating to have to compare myself to the Sean Noriega of years prior, where I had first squatted 635 pounds in 2017 and squatted 661 pounds in 2018, but I've yet to break past those barriers since. Now, comparing yourself to other lifters is something that I think is particularly easy to get over once you become more process-oriented, but I think it's always going to be a little bitter and sting a little bit more when you're comparing yourself to yourself, because you know what you were capable of and should be capable of. And I've definitely not lost any tissue over the years, so trying to figure out why my performance has not exactly stacked up is eluding me a bit. And I don't want to attribute it all to the injuries that I've had, because that was something outside of my control, and I just have to be able to come back from it. But it is a lift that has definitely taken a toll on me mentally, not in the sense of actually having any sort of mental health issues by any means, but just the approach when it comes to getting to the gym and being excited or being confident in doing a lift. My bench press and deadlift have excelled very well over the past few years, and I have no issues trusting in a long-term plan there, but squats, on the other hand, have been a little difficult. So I'll talk more about that going forward, but like I said, very much so trust Steve's plan. And you guys will see here I'm doing some 45-degree hyper extensions, or what should have been a 45-degree hyper. I'm going to start going to my bodybuilding gym to do those because, as you guys can see on here, I can't really get a good stretch of the hamstrings or a really good hip extension, and it's just kind of some lumbar extension you guys are seeing here. So I'm going to start going to my bodybuilding gym, do the pit shark, do the 45s there, and just trust Steve's plan and see what happens with it. Those of you who work with coaches or are just starting meet preps probably know exactly how I feel when I say that getting back on a program after kind of just like coasting along, whether it's due to injury or just taking time off, it feels reinvigorating. Like, I am so excited to be back on program right now, and I'm almost like embarrassed at how bad squats feel. Like, I'm dealing with a groin pain that kind of resurfaced from last year. Even though the back's healthy, something new comes along, of course. And then just being detrained in general, it's just like a shitty combo. You just like look back at what you've done in, you know, years ago. Like 2017, I squatted 635 for the first time, 661 the following year. And it's just like being in these lull periods, it's just like, fuck. Like, it just feels, I don't know, it feels embarrassing. But I know that I'm on a good path. I really trust Steve. Everything that I have programmed was very thoroughly explained to me. I'm 100% on board with it, and that's honestly more than half the battle when it comes to following a program. Like, I am just excited to like hit everything to the T going forward. And I'm excited to show you guys this stuff. So you guys saw me squatting barefoot, and the reason for that is I've gotten into this very hingy, over supinated foot, just like disgusting squat over the past year as like a form of compensation for when I tore my meniscus. And undoing this is going to take a lot of time. So we're trying to get better rooting, stand taller, let the knees track forward. If you go back and watch some of my squats from 2018, maybe early 2019, you'll see that even though I stand wide, my squat was still upright. I was still letting my knees track forward, and now it's like there's like a mental fear associated with it, and then there's also physical limitations that are preventing it, both from a mobility as well as just like a neurological standpoint when it comes to orientation and managing center of mass. So it's like I'm excited to fix it, but it still is discouraging when you're like, fuck, like I've done this so many times before, and like how many times am I going to get knocked back down? But bench is going well, deadlift is going well, and that's kind of been the theme over the past couple of years. Like, I've always had those lifts going well for me. But squats, it's got to pick up. It really has to pick up. These legs are too big for me not to squat, in the upper sixes. So Steve and I have a good plan in place. Controlling the progression of things is going to be huge. Like, he has plans for when to deload, when to take advantage of feeling good, and having somebody in charge of that, takes a lot of power out of my hands that I think sometimes I misuse or abuse. So we're going to move on to tomorrow. Tempo bench. Again, tempo benches are always on Tuesdays. Some 2-count work, and just getting fucking swole, brother. But yeah, this is week 1. Should be pretty easy, but I'm doing some new things, so I'm excited to explain all that to you guys. So I'll see you tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tuesday, and this is probably my favorite bench day of the week. Now, as I did mention, Steve is programming for me, but for my bench press, we are taking a more collaborative approach since he has not worked with a bench press athlete who benches as frequently as I do, nor with an arch or a bench press as heavy as mine. Now, the reason that we're collaborating and we're running with something that I've done before is that my methods have been tried and true, and my training microcycle is pretty robust in the sense that I can rerun it very frequently with tons of success. Putting it simply, my bench has not really slowed down at any point over the past couple of years. So the reason Tuesday is probably my favorite bench day is that it's a tempo single day. And the thing that I love about tempo bench press for me is that it's actually taught me to be a better bench presser. One of the big things for me is leg drive and learning how to leverage myself properly. And through doing more tempo bench pressing, I've learned just how much harder I can push with my feet, just how much harder I can pinch my upper back. And I implore a lot of you to try this with your own bench press. I think you'll learn, since you're spending more time descending, just how much more you can do. So I'm gonna cut off talking for about a second and let you guys see the live footage here, but this is a 200 kilo tempo bench press, which moved the fastest it ever has.
Let's not even discuss it, man. On G. Niggas sleep. I ain't tripping, I'ma let them sleep. I ain't tripping, let them rest in peace. I can tell you how it happened.
I'm calling it there. It's supposed to be at 7, but I'm being responsible. That was probably like a 5, but we'll call it a 7 for today. I'm gonna give myself room throughout the block instead of just pushing bench all the time. Granted, I know I can get away with it, but I'm gonna be responsible. I'm gonna be accountable to my coach. That's what we're doing today.
So like I mentioned, after my tempo single for the day, I moved on to 2 count back downs. And one comment I want to make about bench press, which I think is something a lot of people are just too egotistical to admit, is that usually the biggest drop off for people in competition when it comes to bench press versus the other 2 lifts is simply that they're not pausing long enough. Now, I'm getting 2 count pauses here from Nick and Daquan as my liftoff guys, but in reality, there are many meets where this 2 count is actually just the traditional comp pause. And I think that a lot of lifters, 1, do not pause honestly in training, and 2, do not hold the bar before getting a start command like they would in a competition, as long as it would be. One of the things that I have done with my own training is simply come to expect a disparity between what I hit in the gym and what I do on meet day. And that's simply a function of those external cues. And I think that you can go one of 2 ways. You can either just be honest all the time with your press commands, and then you'll have no disparity, or you can gain some momentum in training like I do and just realize, okay, you're probably gonna have a 5 kilo or so drop off when you get on the platform. Now, on from bench press, we're doing some half kneeling landmine presses with a reach, which is just for overall movement variability of the scapula and shoulder health. Now, this exercise I'm pretty bad at when it comes to weight, but I've gained so much more sensory motor awareness of how to move my scapulas, which has been incredibly important for keeping my shoulders healthy with how frequently I bench and with how frequently I'm benching with this pinned back shoulder position. You know, the scapulas are meant to move both through protraction and retraction, depression and elevation. And I'm carrying those same principles over to these pull downs. While these may be a primarily posterior compression exercise, I am allowing my scapulas to protract, to elevate at the top, and then depress and retract on the way down. I'm not arching my back. I'm trying to keep my rib cage set on top of my pelvis nicely. No extension in the lumbar spine. Really trying to breathe in conjunction with the concentric and eccentric parts of the lift appropriately. And while it is heavy and I'm pushing the exertion, I'm just trying to move really fluidly. Moving on to some dumbbell pendlay rows. I absolutely love any variation of a pendlay row where you're really trying to stay as close to parallel with the ground as possible. I think it has a ton of carryover to the deadlift and is just a great muscle builder. I'm not particularly a fan of doing, dumbbell rows with a ton of momentum or when you're more upright. I'm really a fan of, ironically, range of motion when it comes to the hypertrophy movements.
Steve, I appreciate you. I know what you're trying to do right now. You're trying to get me swole as fuck. For those of you watching who don't know what I'm talking about because you don't see my program, Steve has me doing some goddamn myo reps right now. So I'm gonna do 12, do an RP9, rest about 15 seconds, and then just do another 3 sets within the same set. It's gonna be a good time. Here we go. He's playing games, got you dancing in the middle of the club, got you dancing in the middle of the crowd. I know what I'm chasing, you can only get this feeling from a dog, you can only get this feeling from a dog. Tears falling, but it's looking, you try, all you really want is love. Baby, all you really want is love. I'm the boss, baby, baby, baby,
I appreciate you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here on Wednesday now, which is a high bar day prior to bench and deadlift. And ironically, today felt way better than Monday despite being high bar. Now, as you guys can see, I'm trying to stay more upright, trying to drive my knees forward more. I did an okay job today, but I think I did get a little bit hingy. Today is supposed to be a barefoot day, but I ended up opting for the second best option, which is the barefoot shoe. It is called the Ursus. Now, it is probably one of the better flat shoes that I've worn, but going forward, I will definitely be doing this exercise barefoot. And the reason that I'll be doing it barefoot is that Steve wants to see me actually root properly and not just roll over to the sides of my shoes, which is super easy to rely on, especially when you're wearing a good pair of heels. You'll feel very quickly that you're not rooting correctly or managing your center of mass correctly when you're barefoot, because it's going to be uncomfortable on your foot because the bony parts of your feet are exposed, and if you're not really managing your center of mass well, it's probably just going to hurt. So sorry, Steve, going forward, I'm definitely going to be wearing no shoes, but for today, I just wanted to try these out as it was the first day that I got them. As you guys are about to watch here, this is the last warm-up at 190 kilos, which it moved okay. I was expecting to go to a top double of 210 kilos at RP5, but we ended up just stopping at 200, which honestly, I'm not mad about, because one of the reasons I hired a coach is to control the rate of progression and not just, you know, ball out when I feel good. So top set, double. I'm gonna stop talking right now.
Here we go. Cause my taxes are due. Do my password begin with a 1 or a 2? Been a hell of a ride, but I'm thinking it's time to grow. Metronome. And I'm not just something. Thank you, I forgot it.
So I actually plan on making a video about RPE and percentages in the future and why it is important as a coach to use both. And Steve has already put in a ton of effort into my programming, and the sheet is populated with so many different formulas that are going to calculate percentage backdowns and control the rate of progression going forward in an appropriate way. So following that top double, we had a percentage back down to 182.5 kilos for a triple, or 402 pounds for those of you who are metrically challenged. This triple looked more hingy than I would have liked, and I'm not particularly happy with it, but like I mentioned, I am just getting back to squatting for real this week, and I anticipate a pretty quick comeback in terms of comfort and groove. But again, it is a little discouraging knowing that back in 2018 or so, I did high bar 495 pounds for 7 reps. So we need to get back to that. And I'm confident that we can, but it's just going to take time, and I'm usually very impatient, but we have all the time in the world now. Moving on to bench press, we have our recovery sets today, and this is something that I've used on my Wednesdays for the past several months, including going into my meet prep, which is just having a third day. So I bench Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and that Wednesday is just a very, very conservative day. As you guys saw, that 187.5 or 413 pound double was effortless, probably an RP4 at best, and then we drop down even further to 177.5 kilos or 391 pounds for doubles, which also moved very easily. Now we move on to deadlifts, and today I tried pulling in the Ursus shoes because they did feel so low to the ground, almost like slippers, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, it just doesn't feel the same. I really feel like I cannot produce the same amount of force, and I feel like my positioning is just a little bit worse. Now, part of it could be mental, but I don't feel like it's at all worth it to try to even break past that nocebo when I have a perfectly viable pair of slippers that I usually wear. So today's deadlift programming featured a top set of 4 and then back down 7s. And as you guys can see, we worked with 562 pounds or 255 kilos, and they moved okay. Not great, but I'm not upset with them. My deadlift usually bounces back very quickly once we get back into the high rep work. But after this set, I said, fuck it, we're ditching those Ursus shoes and going back to the slippers, and once we did, deadlifts felt cruising again. So you guys see here, we did 474 pounds for sets of 7. Really easy work. It was a percentage back down of 562 pounds. And we just cruised through the movement. And I think that's a really valuable skill to have, just being able to move through the reps really quickly on deadlift and just establish a flow, especially for sumo. I've definitely found that a lot of sumo deadlifters benefit from high reps, especially those who are lankier, especially. I just said especially twice. That was nonsense. But I have noticed that some lifters who are not necessarily progressing with a traditional periodization model, you give them some high rep work and keep it in longer than you would traditionally think is acceptable, they blow up. I've seen it with lifters like David Chan, if you don't follow him. I've seen it with lifters like Matt Aramoni, just to name a few. But it's worked incredibly well for me, and the alternative has worked incredibly poorly. So I'm gonna stop talking again here, and I'll let you guys just watch the raw footage for this last set.
I'm just saying this, finally, for the record, it's confirmed. I am team slippers on deadlift. I really thought for a split second that these barefoots were gonna be good for pulls. They felt low to the ground, everything felt nice, but I don't know what it is. It's probably just mental, but it feels off. I feel like I can't push as hard. I feel like I can't get into the same position. So we're sticking to slippers, that's it. No more shoes. This week is an intro week, like I mentioned. I'm gonna end the video on today and pick back up with Friday's session, but it feels really good to be told what to do, but also buy into the program. Like it feels nice to like have somebody in charge and know that there's a long-term goal, and even when you do program for yourself, there always is a long-term goal, but you know that it came from your own head, so it's a lot harder to just like be just like objectively obedient the whole way through and be like, this is the plan, there's no questioning it. But now that Steve is in charge, everything is, you know, I trust his plan, and a lot of the stuff that we discussed prior to writing the program, I 100% agree with. And I think for that reason, I would love to have, you know, Steve get on a call with me, and I'll make a YouTube video for you guys about basically just us walking through why we program what we do, because I think that would be a really interesting topic to discuss. I'm gonna speak with him and ask him about it. I'm sure he's gonna be down. For those of you who don't follow his YouTube, I would go to his YouTube channel. I'm gonna link it in the description here. He has so many informative videos on his channel. Really valuable stuff, and honestly, it doesn't get the exposure that it deserves. So, Coach Steve, thank you for your service, and hopefully a bunch of people get redirected to your channel and watch the videos you have out, because there's a lot of content to catch up on for those of you who have not been there. But in the event that he says no to filming this video with me, this comment never happened, but I think he will. That's it for the video, guys. Remember, on Halloween 10/31, at noon Eastern Standard Time. The Team Nori website will be opening up the shop, and you guys will be able to buy the shirts that I will be releasing in this first apparel launch. And in the event that you don't get anything and it all sells out, you'll be able to do it again on Black Friday. So that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Remember, there are no bad days, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.